Hi, my name's Isaac. I'm a videographer and photographer on the Gold Coast, and today I'm having a chat with Matt Quattro from Melbourne. Matt, do you want to give us a few words about yourself?
Yeah, so my name's Matt Quattro. I'm a videographer here down in Melbourne, Australia, and I shoot a lot of corporate stuff at the moment, and probably been in the industry about 7, 8 years at this point. So it's definitely getting up there now.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, today we're going to talk a little bit about pre-production and production, sort of more in the corporate space, more like testimonials or sort of pieces to camera or promo videos, say like recruitment videos, stuff like that. And I just had a few things I wanted to discuss. So mainly for pre-production, a bit about working out what the client really wants. So like I often have clients say, oh, I'd love a video. And I'm like, yeah, what would you like? And they're like, a video. And I'm like, okay, like, are we going 30-second pump up? Are we going 10-minute speech? Like, is this for YouTube or is this going to be a 15-second ad? And they sort of, I don't know, I just know I need a video. So I'd like a bit on that. And then we might also go into, on the shoot day, say making clients comfortable on camera and that sort of thing, getting as much coverage as you can when it's sort of a more boring sort of corporate video. So I guess I'll start with you. Have you got some tips or advice or experiences about pre-production? So say it's a new client that just called you up, hey man, I need a video for my law firm. How do you start from there?
Yeah, I think a lot of times I start with what are the goals of the project? Like, what are they trying to get out of it? I think really helps set a good tone for where to go next because, clients think they need video, and yes, I would say video is extremely important in today's environment. You can't really get away without it, especially if you want to be relevant, be seen on social media and everything else. But I would say to them, what do you want to get out of this? Do you want to have it as an ad on Facebook? Do you want to, get more? If you really start with the final goal, which is why they're doing this in the first place, is it an ad, to get more clients, for example, if it's a gym or signups or whatever else it is, and then you can kind of start working backwards from there. What might be the best approach? And I think that for me has been a really good way to start projects, just by sort of asking the client, well, the video is just a tool to help you accomplish a goal. So what's, it's kind of like that, people don't buy a drill to use a drill, they buy it so they get a hole in the wall kind of thing. So what's the hole in the wall they're looking for, right? How have you found it yourself? What have you found worked best for you?
Yeah. So I do exactly what you do. Like, what's the point of the video? What are you using it for? All this. Oftentimes they'll give me really wishy-washy answers like, oh, I just need to promote my business. And I'm like, yeah, but how? Are you trying to establish credibility by giving knowledge? Or are you trying to do a sales pitch? Like, oh, you've got this problem, we've got this solution or whatever. But often I'll also just ask them two questions. I don't know if these are good questions or not, but this is what I ask them. I'm like, can you send me example videos of something the competition's done or somebody in another industry so I can work it out sort of thing, what you're looking for. And then I'll often also ask what's the budget, which I don't always ask depending on the client. But when they're like, oh, how much does it cost? I sort of go, oh, well, if you want a little run and gun, I can come in for a couple of hours, give you a couple of little videos, and we could get away with say for $1,000 if you're on a real budget. But if you've got the budget for a bit more, we can do something epic that's going to grab attention and people are really going to get drawn in and really love what they see. And I can do that, but obviously that takes more time and money and effort sort of thing. So I just need to know more what I'm quoting for, what sort of realm we're in. And sometimes I find that there's people that sort of really thought that you rock up for half an hour, shoot a few things and you're done in an hour. And they sort of, I'm the first person I've contacted. They're thinking it's going to be $300 for an hour of coverage and get 5 videos out of it sort of thing. And then I'm like, nah, man. And depending on the mood of the conversation, I'm happy sort of explaining pricing a bit. I'm like, dude, I've got to pack up all my gear, get it there, set it all up, get the lighting right. Your 1 minute talk is going to be 20 minutes of you actually talking, and I cut out all the ums and ahs, and I'm going to give you some feedback. And then, then I've got to find a song and I've got to license it. And then I give you the video you provide, or everything. I'm sure you probably give a similar spiel, but I'm like, that's why this 1 minute video where I'm rocking up for 2 hours is $1,000. That's why if you want something even better, we can do it, but it's going to be a half day shoot. I'm going to need to do a lot of planning. That all takes time sort of thing. And just sort of build the expectation right there sort of thing. So I'm half finding out what they want and then half sort of explaining what I do and sort of establishing the bounds of the relationship.
Yeah, totally. No, I think that's really important. And especially if you've got clients that haven't worked with video before, I've been really lucky to have a lot of clients who do potentially have marketing departments and have had experience. So they're usually coming to me with maybe stronger sort of ideas of what the video is going to be. But I can, like, I've definitely had situations in the past where I'm like explaining to people, you give them a quote and their eyes kind of burst out of their head and they go, oh, it costs that much. And it's like, yeah, well, it does cost that much. Because as you said, there's like so much work that goes into it that people don't understand and people don't see. They just go, well, you just rock up with a camera and you just shoot some stuff and you put it into iMovie or whatever you do and get a result at the other end. But it's like, no, there's like a lot more involved. But I would say, like, for me, especially these days, it's really important that I'm like establishing solid goals for the project early. And I think that the reason for that is because I know that if we don't, it's going to come back to me at the end of the day. Because if the client, like, even if you manage to convince the client to spend thousands of dollars on a project, if they've got no clear goal and they just think it's like, a nice wishy-washy video that we just need a video for the company, and then it doesn't do anything because they put it on their socials for a day and it just doesn't get any engagement whatsoever. And then it's just like, wow, we spent thousands of dollars, what a waste. And that's the experience I don't want the client to have, because that means they're not going to come back to me, or they're going to think it was my fault that, we didn't do a better job. And I think, sometimes you just need to be able to say to those clients, here's what we really want to accomplish. And you need to be really strong about this. Otherwise, the video is not going to do what you want it to do. And that money you spent isn't going to feel like it's well spent, right?
Yeah. I might be sidetracking here, but like one video job I did, my wife, who's my second shooter, and I flew to Melbourne, shot 2 episodes of like a little promo video. Each one's like 2 to 5 minute testimonial sort of thing. And like we did an awesome job, like they look amazing sort of thing. But then, and like the client paid for all our flights, accommodation, 2 people for a couple of days, all that sort of thing. So it was like decent pay. And then they like upload them to YouTube where they've got like 10 subscribers and then they get like 20 views. And I'm sort of like, I've explained to them that the world's greatest video with no marketing will not work, sort of thing. But I'm still feeling personally bad that they've invested in me. But even though I've explained it to them, it's not my fault, but they haven't marketed it, sort of thing. So do you have any, like, obviously I say that to them beforehand. I'm like, I'll give you the world's greatest video. If you've got 10 subscribers, nobody's going to see it. So you need to have a marketing strategy around this. Otherwise, you've just got a sick video. Do you have anything you do there to try and help them out?
Yeah, I think just having the conversation, right? Like exactly what you said. If you've brought it up at the first place and you flagged it, I think that's really important. But at the same time, you don't work in the marketing department of this company, right? I think that if they want to hire you for like digital marketing strategy, I think that's something you could offer as a service. But if they're paying you, a couple of thousand to do a video, I feel like that's probably not in your scope to give them the advice and strategy around it, unless, again, that's something you do and they want to pay for it. I just feel like at the end of the day, if you have a good relationship with the client, if you've been able to bring that up and, you've gone ahead and made the video and they have put on YouTube with, 10 subscribers and 20 views, they will know that this is something that was said early on. They will know this is something that maybe they can improve on themselves or they need to invest money in. I think, again, videos without any kind of strategy behind them just aren't going to do the job that companies want them to do. And I think, again, like it's really important for us to be really communicative around that, because at the end of the day, we want to be successful in terms of we want to have a lot of great clients who are very happy. And we can only do that if the clients are also helping themselves out and, investing in this, not just as a single project, but as like a holistic thing. It's kind of gets into like whole company strategy now, and you can only go so far and do so much. But at the end of the day, you can't wear it if it doesn't go exactly as it should have gone, right? Yeah. That's kind of been my experience.
And I've noticed, because I do photography as well, and I feel like photography is often do a photo shoot and then they're happy with the photos for 5 years. They come back 5 years later, sort of thing. So like 95% of my clients are new clients or somebody I haven't seen in years. Whereas I find with my video clients, it's sort of like I get a new client and then I'm sort of shooting for them every couple of months. Like the sort of client that comes to me that needs video is sort of the person that needs ongoing video work, sort of thing. So I'm almost more invested in building I don't want to give them the world's best video. I want to build a really good relationship. And I sort of prefer that, because when I'm going out for the 4th video shoot with them, they know exactly what I'm like. They know what I like, how I like to communicate. And like some of my regular clients, I train them up on terms. I'm like, like as I'm shooting, I'm trying to get them excited I'm like, oh man, this is called an over the shoulder shot. Oh, notice this is handheld, so it feels a bit more documentary and stuff. And sometimes they just like, having fun with it but don't care sort of thing. They're like, I don't care, you're the video guy sort of thing. Other times, like I'll be doing like the 5th shoot and they're like, oh bro, this would be sick for an over the shoulder. I'm like, man, like, yeah, you've learned well sort of thing. And we all just love it. And it's also easy to communicate. Like then when we're talking about other videos, not just shot terms, but they're just like, oh yeah, this one needs to be portrait aspect ratio. It needs to be under 15. And like, it's clear because we've worked together before, they know how to describe what they want. Like this is a pump up video, there'll be no dialogue, just and all using the right terms, and we can smash it out in record time rather than me trying to explain why you don't want a 3-minute video with no dialogue because it's just boring. You know what I mean? Because we've already covered that before and they understand.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I love how you're actually like training up the clients as well. So like you just got to be careful that it replace you because they're like, oh, I know all this stuff already. You know, I got taught by Isaac. But
I pull up a Nike commercial and I'm like, man, see how this feels like real rawness and gritty. And they're like, yeah, man. I'm like, that's because it's handheld, man. And they're like, oh, I thought gimbal smooth shots were cool. I'm like, that looks like overproduced, man. You want this realness, especially for like fitness sort of stuff and all that. Yeah. And then, just seeing them light up and actually like half the time they do really care. And it's sort of like you're demonstrating your knowledge and experience at the same time without like bragging to them how smart you are or something. You're sort of helping them and also showing your knowledge.
Totally. And I think like in any business, it's all about relationships, right? Like at the end of the day, if it's so much more effort for either of us to have to get a new client, right? To have to sort of sell our services, to have to build, like to start something and have a chat and sort of like start with a chat around why video is important, why you should invest in it, you know, talking about how long everything takes and why it costs so much money. Like if you had to do that every single day to try and get the next client and the next client, like it's so much more work and energy compared to you being able to lean on relationships that you have with people who they love your work, they love working with you, they want to continue making videos with you, they see the value in what you do as well. And even, you know, you might have companies that come to you and again, like they'll pay for a video and it won't go very well because they didn't have a good marketing strategy, and that's not really on you and that they might not hire you back again. But at the same time, like if you provided the best experience you could, there's not much you can do about that. So you really try and aim for those clients, right? Like you've got who want to hire you every 3 to 4 months to get the next videos for their social channels, who again, see the value in it, see that they like really love the results. But even just like making videos is kind of exciting, you know, people love it. They especially I think corporate work, people who work in a corporate environment, they're sitting behind desks, they're in meetings. To be on a shoot, to like see something come to life, it's fun and exciting. And I think they just, I often feel, I don't know if you get the same, but like clients, they want to take the day to be a part of the shoot, you know, because it's just like, it's different for them.
Yeah. And I try and involve them both with the training, and sometimes it's like, oh, do you mind just holding this reflector for a minute? But as soon as they do it, I'll flip my monitor around so they can see, and I'll be like, pull the reflector down, up, and they'll be like, oh yeah, I can see the difference I'm doing. I'm not just holding a reflector because I got told. They feel like they're contributing sort of thing. I'm just like, yeah, man, thank you so much. Like that girl on camera looked extra nice because of that fill light. And they're like, yeah, I know what fill light is now. So all that sort of stuff.
It's great, honestly. And that's, if you can do that on a set, if you can provide a fun experience where people enjoy being a part of it, honestly, like that can sometimes negate that disappointment of putting it on the YouTube channel with 10 subscribers, because they will look back and go, I had a really fun time putting this together. Isaac, who I worked with, was a great person, really enjoyable. Like I felt like I was a part of the process. And even though they may never say this to you, they may never like consciously think it, they may just subconsciously feel that. And they may want to be a part of that again somehow, even if their company might not rehire you down the line. I've had so many people who've moved to different companies and then gone, actually that person we work with in that other company, they're really good, let's hire them. Maybe at this point where they have a new company with a better marketing strategy and something that's going to go further, right? And they're willing to invest money in it. So I would never underestimate relationships.
I feel like you're building relationships with people, not brands or companies sort of thing. So that's like 100% true, because my best friend does videography as well. And it's the same thing. If somebody moves, you've lost that company as a client and you've sort of gained this new company as a client sort of thing. Like it's crazy how often it happens. Even though the previous company, the whole brand image is built around what you've done, half the time they're just like, oh, yep, the new guy's got a friend or somebody they've worked with before they're comfortable with, which is fair enough sort of thing. But it's crazy like how that happens.
Totally. Like I just feel as though, you know, it's getting new clients. If you want to build your business, it's all about, you know, having those good relationships, because then people talk and, you know, people want to know, hey, do you know a videographer? Because if you search, especially here, if you search Melbourne videography, there are just like pages of Google results. And it's like, where do you start? Like, and how do you know that they're any good to work with, right? Like they're obviously there's a lot of websites with some great sort of content that they've uploaded and said like, this is what we do and here's some great work we've produced. But to actually know that you've worked with someone before and had that experience, and then you call up your friend and they go, hey, you know, like we need a videographer, or we worked with Isaac. Isaac was great. We really recommend him. That will take precedence over going on your website and checking out your work. It will still be important, I think, like looking at your work, but knowing that someone else who they know has given you a good review and given them the approval to like work with you will be way more powerful, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I noticed when I was first starting, I thought people would care about my show reel. So like I'd meet somebody, say I do video, and they're like, oh sweet, I need a video, come do it. And I'm like, oh wait, I'll show you my show reel. You know, you can see what my visual style is like, see if you like it. They don't give a you're a nice person, you know, and you said you do video, that's all they need to know sort of thing. So it's like back in the day, I was like, oh, I need the perfect show reel. I better make sure my visuals match the things people are looking for. Now I'm just like, dude, if I want more business, just work on my personal skills. Like really,
Yeah, agreed. And like, you know, you have to look, there will be points where I think you have to put yourself out there because word of mouth will only sometimes get you so far. And especially if these clients are like working in the one organization for the next 20 years and they don't need any more video work, and they don't speak with anyone else outside of that around video work, then probably you're not going to get anything from them in that respect in terms of word of mouth and getting new clients that way. But I think, you know, showreel is somewhat important, but I think we overemphasize how important it is. And also like the socials aspect too. I know like for me, I'm not great on the socials in terms of just like pushing my work and pushing my content out. But at the end of the day, I don't feel like, personally, I don't feel like I get a lot of work through that because a lot of the people I'm trying to, I guess, target with my work, they're not going to be on Instagram looking at behind the scenes film shoots, right? Like they're going to be sitting in an office going, oh, we need a video for this, you know, project we're working on. Who knows anyone, right? Like they'll be asking around. So that's kind of been my experience with it anyway.
Yeah. I've been the same. Like all of my clients are either word of mouth or Google search, as in SEO sort of thing. I've never had somebody find me from Instagram. So every time I do a shoot, we put up some BTS content on Instagram, and I'll put up like all the photos I take on a separate Instagram account with the same name as my business name and all that. Yeah. And then my wife goes through, she loves hashtagging. So it's like hashtag perfectly, which like I suck at. So I outsource that to her. Yeah. I just like, well, I've never had somebody say I found you on Instagram. It's always, oh, you shot my friends a year ago and the photos were beautiful. Or I searched fitness photography Gold Coast and you were the #1 result. So I clicked it and I liked what I saw. So I'm just like, yep, SEO 100% sort of thing. So I like having socials, but it's almost for people that have already found me, that want to find a bit more about me or whatever sort of thing. Or like before this, you know, I stalked your Instagram just to sort of try and get to know you a bit better. But I'm saying I don't know that many people are discovering through that, or many clients, as in I follow heaps of photographers on Instagram for inspiration, but I'm not finding my next person who's going to shoot me a video through Instagram in my experience.
Totally. And I think the stories I've heard of people who do get like a lot of DMs and do sort of build their business through Instagram, I think a lot of times they're working in the film industry as like a specific part of it. So they're like a director of photography. I feel like that'd be really powerful to upload your work to Instagram and have these beautiful stills of things you've shot. And then the director who is on Instagram and is very in tune with like looking for these things on Instagram is going to come and find you and go, hey, I love your style. Let's, you know, I've got this script I'm working on. Let's do this. But your fitness clients, they're not generally on Instagram searching up film shoots behind the scenes and seeing, or, you know, photography behind the scenes and seeing all these pictures of you taking like video or photos and then going, this is the guy, right? Like they'll look at your website first and go, this is the video we want. Let's hire this guy. So that's probably like the way that it works better.
Yeah. All right. I guess we'll change it up a bit now. So do you want to talk a little bit about pre-production? So somebody's gone, okay, we're going to go Matt because Isaac's better, but he's in Queensland and we're in Melbourne. So they're going with you. All right. So now it's like, okay, we're booked in. We're going to shoot in a month's time because that's when the talent's available and stuff. What do you do then as far as managing client expectations, working out exactly what they want, and then also maximizing the bang for buck of your time on site? So like, okay, we got this 2-hour time period. You've got to shoot 3 talking head videos and all the B-roll. How do you go in with a strategy or tips that you have to make sure you get as much B-roll and get the best performance from there? So I realize that's half pre-production, half production, but we'll sort of just smush it all together.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting one. I feel as though it's always project dependent, right? It changes on project by project basis. But I think the more questions you can ask early on, the better. And I think you're better served to do it as soon as possible. Like it's not great if you continue to keep asking the client questions in little dribs and drabs, because then they kind of feel like you lose track of the conversation, and it's also probably frustrating for them to have to respond to so many emails. So I think finding out things like, where are we going to shoot? And a lot of times, I think you'd probably agree, Isaac, with the jobs that we do, we don't have much of a say in who's going to be on camera, because it's probably going to be someone who works there. And second, like, where's it going to be shot? It's usually going to be shot at the location, exactly, at their location. If it's a gym, it's a gym. If it's a corporate thing, it might be at their office, or one of their locations that they have. And we'll just go from there. So like sort of figuring out, I think, how much needs to be shot. And that's where your experience comes into play. And like, okay, in the past when we tried to do this, it took, a good couple of hours. So I know this is going to at least be a half-day shoot, but do we need a full-day shoot? Or I don't know. Like, again, it depends on the project. So I think clients aren't just coming to you for your expertise around creating the video. I think a lot of people think, oh, I can edit a video. Great, cool. You can edit a video. That's awesome. But what is it like to be on set on the day? And can you, I guess, the client is looking for your expertise and advice around how long this is going to take, what we need, and it's up to you to sort of go to them and say, look, this is what we need, this is what we're going to do, it's going to cost this much. And I've definitely had people push back and go, it's a bit out of our budget. And then you're kind of like to them, that's cool, we can do it for less. What is your budget? And then from there we can kind of, okay, we can do a half day instead of a full day shoot, and it will take this much off the price. But then also we're probably not going to be able to shoot as much as you want. So what can we cut out of that? And so that was really big learning for me, because originally I was always just like, this is how much it's going to cost. And if the client said, no, I don't want to pay that, I'd be like, sorry, I can't do the job. And now it's like,
the desk.
No, well, not exactly like that, but definitely more like I should have always led with, okay, that's fine. If you can't afford that, that's all right. But here's what you can afford, and here's what I can do for your budget. So sort of like trying to work around what they have rather than just sort of saying an outright flat no kind of thing, right? I don't know if that answers the question though. I feel like I might have gone a bit off track there.
No, that's cool. Yeah, so I'll do similar to what you've done. I'll also ask if they can to give me photos of locations. They'll be like, oh, we're shooting it in head office in a boardroom. And so I'll say, okay, can you give me a couple of pictures in the boardroom? Just pretend you're shooting an interview. And like, it's usually like the marketing department is always chicks for some reason. So they're very familiar with shooting a nice photo on the iPhone. So it's like, can you just get one of your workmates to sit somewhere you think's good and take a shot? And then they'll do it. And there'll either be like an amazing wall in the background that's like a nice contrasty color, looks beautiful, or it's going to be somebody pinned up against a white wall in like a 3x3 echo chamber, tiny cubicle office sort of thing. And just instantly I can go, okay, if we shoot in there, it's going to look like a boring office worker in a boring tiny office. Is it possible that we can go outside and shoot out the front of your work with the building in the background or something? And I'll sort of just Google or look at my previous videos, find a couple of screenshots. I'll go like, look at this, we shot this out the front. See how, because they're away from the building, the background's a bit blurry, so you can tell they work for the company and the person's there, but it looks nicer than a blank white wall sort of thing. And they're like, oh yeah, we didn't even think of that. But the front office has this freaking epic thing. And I'm like, okay, round two, go get me a shot of your talent there sort of thing. And they'll send it to me and I'm like, yeah, that's perfect sort of thing. So I sort of get them to do my location scout for me, because I don't want to do a location scouting because I wouldn't do it for free. So I'm like, you guys don't want to pay me $200 to drive to your work and take some photos with my iPhone. Like I can't justify that. If you want, I will, but neither of us want that. So they'll just do that. And then I know what I'm dealing with before the day, and often be like, can you also just give me like a 5-second pan video? And then I can see, oh yeah, there's like a big wall here, or oh no, there's going to be a lot of direct sunlight or whatever sort of thing. So I'm always teaching them how to do my pre-production for me. And then I'll also say, like, I always try and ask them the question to give them like the option to help me, but I also don't want them to feel like they have to do the work. So I'll say things like, we need B-roll, which is the footage that goes over while you're talking, if the close-ups of stuff and all that, in case they don't know what B-roll is. So I'm like, if you want, I'll just shoot all the B-roll on the day. You don't even have to think about it. But if you want to help out a bit, maybe look at your competitors, find a couple of cool videos that you really like the look of, that have a similar feel to what you want, and send me some links to their YouTube videos. And if you've got any cool things, like a feature wall or a cool piece of equipment in your office that you really want to feature because it's fancy, just send me a couple of photos of it, and then I can plan better sort of thing. And then often they'll send me like, a video that's sort of a bit boring, but has some cool shots in it. And then I'll sort of say that I'm like, oh, that felt a bit slow. I can do that if you want. Personally, I think instead of 3 minutes, we should do 2 minutes. But here's 10 screenshots from the video that I think are cool shots. Does that sound good to you? And they'll usually say, yeah. And so I'll say, okay, we'll aim for a 3-minute video, but I might chop it down to 2. We're going to have sick B-roll. We're going to feature these things. And on the day, I'm also going to just make up some other stuff, just so you know. So it's not just going to be these shots. You don't have to do any more planning, but if you do think of something else, let me know, sort of thing. And so, yeah, they're doing the location scouting and almost the shot list for me in advance. And then on the day, like I'm constantly going, oh, what's this cool thing? Is there anything else you can think of, sort of thing? So I'm sort of very much making it up on the day. And side tangent, my usual setup is handheld big rig and then a second camera, exact same camera on a gimbal. So that way I can go, oh yeah, this is a gimbal shot, just grab that sort of thing, put that down, grab the handheld rig, go get those shots. So it allows me to sort of smash through B-roll. And my goal on the day is almost to get the most variety of B-roll. I'm like, I could spend 10 minutes trying to get the perfect shot of this massage chair, sort of thing. But I can't feature a massage chair more than 3 seconds. So I'm just going to get a sick wide, a sick tight shot, maybe somebody sitting it, and then we're moving on. Like there's no point spending 10 minutes here, spend 1 minute for 3 different shots here and then jump on, sort of thing, which sometimes I'm really good at. But sometimes when I'm going through my shots afterwards, I'm like, bro, I was really hung up on this one thing. I got like 18 shots of it. And number 18 is a better shot than number 1, but I could chuck number 1 in the edit and could have like gone off and got some other shots in that time, sort of thing. And like at the budgets I'm working at, we don't have all day. I've got 2 hours or 4 hours or whatever. Get the most variety you can, sort of thing. So that's still something I'm working on. The voice in the back of my mind. And other times I get a decent shot and I'm like, oh, bro, if I did this one more time, it would be better because there's a bit of ibis jerk or something there. Yeah. And I'm like, wait, would the client even give it?
Yeah. I think I love your approach. Obviously, I think what you do a lot of like fitness stuff, right? It's a lot of high energy and you need to have a lot of those really fast cuts, which I think puts you in a position where you have to do a lot more B-roll and you have to be a lot more mindful of it. I'm just thinking of like a recent shoot I had to do where I was like down by the beach and we were filming like talking piece to camera, right? And it was very much, we didn't have the time, it was a single day shoot to like get a whole bunch of B-roll. So at the end, we got some nice weather and I was just pointing the camera at the beach and trying to get as many shots as possible. And then we're trying to source shots from them as well. And in the edit, like you could spend 5-10 seconds on one of these B-roll shots of like panning across the beach, which feels extremely slow in the fitness world. Like you would just tune out, right? Because it's just like, this doesn't feel like it's got any energy whatsoever. But in my particular project, it was just kind of cover up some sort of those cuts of like the person talking. And then, we have to cut because it would take too long or they stuffed up on somewhere. So having those shots kind of mastered a bit. And I just think it's really important to obviously know in advance, and I think tell the client in advance like what you're trying to do and what you're trying to accomplish and get them to help you as much as possible, because as you said, like in the budgets we're working at, we don't have the opportunity to go there and location scout for a day and plan all the shots in advance, plan all the lighting. I always look up to these film shoots where they're full crew and everything else, and they've got the storyboards, they've got the lighting diagrams. It's none of what we get to do. We just get to go there on the day and capture what we can, right? So it's super important you walk away with everything you need, because like the worst thing is you get into the edit and you go, I wish I had more, or I don't have enough. And then it's like, how do you communicate that to the client that we need to come back for another shoot, or, they need to spend more money, whatever it's going to be, right? I think it's up to you to be really clear, and you get that by the experience of working in it, right?
Yeah. All right. I'll ask you this. Name one shot you get but never use in the edit, but you think it's really cool. And then name one shot when you're in the edit, you're like, crap, I should have got more of X. So I'll go first. So for the shot I always do that's sick, that I never use, it's the long one take. So for example, we're doing a video for a supplement company, and this person works there. So it's them, they walk up the street, unlock the door, walk inside, and I'm just like gliding. It looks like magic. It's like, you're really in the moment, sort of thing. And then I get into the edit and like they're doing a piece to camera and this is the B-roll. I'm like, bro, this is 10 seconds of somebody walking into a store. Like I can't use, so like grab 1 second of them walking past the store and then the second where they open the door and I'm like, sick one take. Why did I even bother? You know what I mean? But I don't learn. So I've done a couple of one takes since then of like somebody grabbing a weight, putting it on the bar, then getting under and then doing a rep, sort of thing. It's like, bro, this is 15 seconds of somebody doing one rep. Like, like what am I
Yeah.
doing? So yeah, again, grab half a second of the weight, 1 second of the squat, and like move on, sort of thing. So like, I still use the shots, but not the way I intended, sort of thing. But I'm
Yeah.
sure now that I've said this, next week I'm going to do another sick one take I won't use. I'll let you have a go. What's yours?
No, I know what you mean. It's like I've done exactly the same thing with I think the gimbal. The problem is with these tools these days, things like gimbals and drones especially, because they're stuff that you couldn't do 10 years ago was just like a stretch to get a camera on like a Steadicam, right? I remember building my first a DIY Steadicam from Bunnings and having like metal pipes and stuff and trying to balance it. And it was crazy bad. I would never take that on a client shoot. And now you can put a camera on
I had the $50 eBay special, man, from China that like, I couldn't work it out, so it went in the bin. I'm like, I'm just killing the environment. Like, you're just buying this crap.
I know. I had a crap one as well after that had a vest, and it was so squeaky that you couldn't get any audio because like the bouncing of the springs was awful. But like when I got a gimbal, it was just like, wow, the camera is so steady. And you're doing these shots, like exactly what you said, these one takes where you're like running in and like following someone. You're like, this looks so smooth, it looks so cool. And then you get into the edit and you're like, this just doesn't work at all. And for me, I was a shooter actually the other day on this project, and it got to the end of the day and I was like, I've done heaps of handheld, heaps of stuff on tripod and moving like that way. I want to get some cool gimbal shots now. And I reckon they were the worst shots of the day. Like because I only had a short amount of time, I put it on the gimbal and I was like running around. It was like this activation. So it was like this thing in a shopping center where we were just filming. And I was doing the equivalent to like a musician jamming out during a song. Like I was just running around with a gimbal, getting a whole bunch of these random shots. And I just said because I wasn't editing this particular project, I just said to the editor, look, this at the end, I just wanted to create some dynamic movement that you might be able to use, but I just don't think any of it's any good. Like, just see how you go. So,
you know, it's a good shot when you apologize for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man.
It was just like, it was, I've definitely had some good gimbal shots in the past, but it's one in like every so often. It's definitely, I always feel like I put stuff on the gimbal expecting to get the most cinematic best shot in the world. And then look back and go, yeah, I can't really use much of this. Whereas like what you're saying is if you have like a sequence of shots where you have, the guy gets on the bench, the guy puts the weights on, and you get that all as separate shots, it's way more dynamic. It's way more like it tells a story because, all of a sudden this guy's getting ready to pump some iron. Then you get the shots of the reps kind of thing. And then all of a sudden it's just like, that's way more effective than you flying around doing a 360 with a gimbal. And it's like, what is going on?
Yeah, and the shot variety, I'm like, as he's grabbing the bar, you're gonna zoom in on whatever lens you've got, so 105 or 200 or whatever, and get the hands grabbing the bar. Then you're gonna do like an ultra wide of the whole gym as he's walking to the bench, and like, you'll get 10 really different looking shots. Whereas when you do that gimbal one take, even if you chop it up and use the good bits, it's still 3 shots at 35 mil or whatever. You know what I mean? So even though you've got all the shots in there somewhere, they're all just mediocre.
Yeah. Agreed. I feel like the gimbal has to be used, and same with the drone, they have to be used very like mindfully. And I think a lot of times, like the shoots that we're on, like even though I'd like to think, we're both probably very competent videographers in a sense, it's also just like when you're in that environment where you've only got a couple of hours to work on all these B-roll shots, you just end up trying things and then you go, that worked, that didn't work. And it's still that way. As long as you've got everything you need, you're fine. But, it's still the case that you look back and go, yeah, next time I probably don't need to do that. You're right.
Yeah. Oh, dude, if I pack the gimbal, mentally I feel like I've got to use it. Like, man, I charged that gimbal, I pre-balanced it, and I put it in the car, and then I got to the location, I pulled it out. I can't just let it, I've got every shot I need. I can't let it sit there. But better get the token gimbal. Like there's something about it sort of thing where I'm just like, I'm not trying to impress the client with my sick gimbal or something. It's just, it's there. I can't not. Like it's some human psychology stuff. You know what I mean? Even though like if all my gimbals broke tomorrow, I don't even know if I'd buy one. Like maybe I'd buy one just so I've got it in case I need it. But I feel like I could go without it sort of thing as long as I've got IBIS.
I think, the IBIS, and especially because we use Sony cameras these days, the IBIS in these like Sony a7S III and the FX3 is incredible. Like I've never had a camera with IBIS before the a7S III. And I think just sometimes the shots that I get, like, so what I do is I generally, if I'm going handheld on the a7S III, I'll put like a camera strap around my neck and I'll hold it out front. So it's kind of got, I've kind of got a bit of distance and I've kind of got it tight. So it's kind of helping me to balance it and stabilize it. And that to me, like, creates these really smooth shots where I'm like, it's not it's not a gimbal shot, but it's getting really close. And if it saves me having to balance a gimbal and bring a gimbal and I can get away with it, I mean, honestly, you can do so much without it. And that to me just says like, okay, the gimbal's cool, but again, use it for like a shot that you're going to really need it.
Yeah, when it's required. Yeah, I used to do the neck strap, shoulders up, back and down, and push your hands out sort of thing. And that was my human gimbal thing.
Yeah.
But now I found with my FX3, I put a V-mount on the back, and that's just it only powers the monitor. It doesn't even power the camera, but that's like totally fine. But I just put the V-mount like up against my chest, and then I'm like canoning it sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I like that more than the camera strap around the neck. I don't know why, but I feel like the shots are a bit smoother, but it also feels nicer sort of thing.
Yeah.
So that's my sort of pretend gimbal sort of thing. Do you have any other pretend gimbal movements? Like pretend if you haven't got a gimbal, but you want to go super smooth?
Oh, it's just about the technique, right? I think it's about the heel toe. Yeah. It's about being like really soft on the, on the movements, trying to like, and then also knowing what you can stabilize, because if you've got a shot where it's all in focus, you probably have much more of a chance of like getting it smoother in post. So again, knowing like what you can accomplish in post too, like if it's a shot where you're like pushing in subtly, I think that's way more achievable to be able to stabilize that in post than like these sort of lateral movements where it goes across and pans, because then it's just going to confuse the stabilizer. Yeah. So I think it comes down to expertise. It comes down to knowing what you can do in the edit. I don't know if you've used the Sony software as well, Catalyst Browse, that allows you to like stabilize things. Yeah.
Never.
Honestly, it's good in theory. Like I tried it once and I was like, oh, this is great because the camera, the FX6 is recording the movements inside. And then you go into this software and it basically translates it to like help stabilize the video. But the problem is you've got to like put every video in there, do it, and then render the videos out. And I'm just like, who has time to do this on any project? So I find I don't use it a lot. But it's another option where you can kind of get shots. Yeah.
Yeah. The reason I don't use it is, one, I've got IBIS anyway, sort of thing. 2, I don't want to do that workflow. But 3, I love seeing what I've got right away. So I want to record that clip where I'm pretending to be a gimbal and then play it back and see if it's smooth. So if it's smooth because I've got IBIS and there's a bit of jerkiness, but I know warp stabilizer, fix it up, I'm 95% complete in camera. I know I've got it. I've never tried Catalyst Browse, but I feel like if I got a shot where I was sort of a bit jerky and I watch it back on my monitor as I shoot it, how do I know if the shot's usable or not? You know what I mean? That's my theory. Like, aside from all the processing bullshit as well, just going home going, hope Catalyst can solve this problem doesn't sound like the way I want to do a paid shoot.
No, exactly. Yeah, you're right. Like definitely on paid shoots, and I feel like it has its downsides because if, for example, you've got something, it's always same with gimbals. If you've got something in the foreground that like moves separately to the background, that sort of parallax movement, it really like even when you stabilize it, it doesn't look right because something's moving like where it shouldn't be moving. And I find this a lot with like lens flares as well. If you've got like a lens flare in the background and then you stabilize something, the lens flare moves, but the shot looks stable, and you're like, this doesn't feel right. So I think, it just comes down to knowing what you can and can't do. And as you said, if you can see it first and know exactly what, does it look stable already in camera, you're already like halfway there. You're like, yeah, okay, I feel confident in this shot.
Yeah. All right. So we'll cut over to on the shoot day now. So I feel like we've already covered sort of getting all the shots on for B-roll, unless you got anything you want to add.
No, I think hopefully covered a good amount of ground. I felt like it was a good conversation.
Yeah. You're like, the rest is a trade secret. I'm not telling you nothing. Yeah. Okay. So now we'll just go. Remember. Okay, so now it's a piece to camera. So we've just pulled out the receptionist who found out yesterday that she's got to do a testimonial about the company. And so, she's like, oh, okay. I'm like, oh, here, put this mic on. She's like, oh, okay. And then I whip out the rig and she's like, shh. And I'm like, okay, I really want it to be natural. Just talk to me like we're friends having conversation. You're not doing a formal speech sort of thing. So, we can do as many takes as you want sort of thing. Just make sure, and I always say, make sure that you tell me what the question is in the answer, and then I also word my question correctly. So instead of saying, do you like the business, because I'm naturally going to say yes, even if I said include the question, I say, tell me why you like the business. Maybe start with, I love working for X because Y. And then you and I'm like, you don't have to answer right away. You can think about it for 10 seconds. I'm already recording. Just when you're ready, do it sort of thing. And they'll be like, just sort of sit there awkwardly. And I'm like, okay, smile at the camera. Like, I like working for X because blah, blah, blah. And I sort of, that's I'm not saying it's the optimum thing. That's the closest I've gotten, where I say, take as long as you need because I can chop out gaps anyway. I don't want ums, so I'd rather you just stop, chill for 10 seconds, gather your thoughts, and then answer, sort of thing. So between that and me saying, tell me, rather than me asking them a question, because when I first started, I'd be like, why do you like this company? And they're like, yeah, I love this company. Oh, that's a bad example. But yeah, that's sort of, yes, because why? And all that sort of stuff. So that's what I found. What's your A-roll talent, either getting them comfortable or getting a good thing from them?
Yeah, it's always tough because it's so person dependent. Some people, I honestly, like, I have seen, obviously, I'm sure you're the same, the worst and the best. And some people like get in front of camera and they actually sound like they're going to be great. And then they sort of struggle a lot and you go, okay, this is like, we need to try and work a little bit more on this. And then other people, like, you just don't expect it and they get on camera and they're just amazing and they just smash it out of the park. And you're like, more people like you, please. That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
You can't tell.
I'm going to do a shout out to my boy Toby. He's the best at that. He's just sort of sitting there on his computer doing some accounting or whatever. I point a camera, I'm like, bro, it's go time. He's like, yo, welcome, blah, blah. I'm like I just like walk out of the room. He's so loud, sort of thing. And just like, just one take wonder sort of thing. I was like, why can't everyone be like that? Sorry for the interruption.
It makes your job no, that's fine. It makes your job so much easier. I love it when that happens. But obviously, like, for me, and I think you're the same, it's just about getting people comfortable, right? Because especially people who don't have experience on camera, it's scary. It feels scary because everything's been recorded. You feel like you're being watched. Everything, your movements. If you don't feel like you look good that day, you're like, oh my God, I look like crap, and everyone's so self-conscious and they get in their own heads. And I've definitely like experienced a lot of that. So sometimes the downside we have in our kind of line of work is we don't have a lot of time. And I feel like we'd benefit from having more time to have a conversation with someone first, to sit down with them, get them comfortable, and then start rolling. But a lot of the times, if you're pulling the receptionist for like 5 minutes or 10 minutes, you don't have that chance to build any sort of rapport. So you sort of struggle. The person's just there in their state. They're like, really shocked, like you said. And they're like, oh, okay, all right, I've got to try and say something. I've got to try and smile. I've got to try and remember to say the question back. And you just have to, like, at some point accept what you've got and what you're going to get. And I don't think anyone's going to blame that on you. Like, at the end of the day, like, you can do your absolute best to try and get them comfortable, to ask them how they are, like, what can you do to sort of help them out, do multiple takes. I think that's really important to say. We've got unlimited recording time. You can be here for like half an hour and it's fine. Don't stress. But at the same time, like, even at the end of the day, I've definitely recorded my fair share of, okay, this was a bit rough, but we'll work with it, because at the end of the day, like, this is just what we've got and we can't do much about it. If the client themselves aren't happy, we can maybe get some more people from the business to actually like talk, and hopefully they might be a little bit better in front of camera. And again, just communicating that, like, honestly with the client, like, maybe that was a little bit tough and maybe we could try and find someone else. And again, that will be their call whether they think it's worthwhile. I think all of those are just really important, but the most important thing is just trying to make the person feel comfortable. And you can only do that by hopefully being a nice person and hopefully, trying to, put them at ease with everything you possibly can, and then just seeing how it goes from there.
Yeah. I always try and build rapport early on, so I know who I'm shooting way in advance. And I tell whoever the client is, I'm like, if we're bringing in the receptionist for a testimonial, make sure she knows days in advance, because maybe she wants to get her hair done or she's going to do her makeup extra nice on the day or something, which will make her feel more comfortable. I don't care how pretty she is, sort of thing. But she'll feel more comfortable about it. And then on the day, I try and joke around as much as I can before getting the camera out. So when I first get there, go, oh, hey, I know I'm shooting you later, like, can't wait, sort of thing. Glad it's you, not me. I'm definitely built for behind the camera, sort of thing. All that sort of thing. And then I find the thing I'm doing the most is I'm monitoring the audio, and half the time I'm closing my eyes so they don't feel like I'm staring at them. Don't know if it makes any difference to the performance, but I'm just sort of like doing these ones while they talk. And anytime they do anything good, I'm just like, yeah, what's up? Or like giving them thumbs up. It's like sort of encouraging. And then like, I feel like half the takes I do, no matter who it is, whatever age, gender, demographic, anything, I'm always like, that was really good. However, I can tell how much you care or how excited you are about this, but you didn't sound like it. Could I get literally exactly what you just said, but just turn it up a little bit more excitement, a little bit more passion, or, make it more exciting, sort of thing. And then half the time they'll just do even better, sort of thing. And sometimes they'll do literally the same thing, and then I've wasted 2 minutes, but who cares? But half the time you just see them light up. They're like, oh, it's like, I'm allowed to get excited. You know, even though it's a testimonial about working for the company, I can say I freaking love this place rather than just like I love this place because. So yeah, I mean, it's like there's so many. Like it's almost like you're giving them permission, and once you ask them to turn up to 11, and I'm like just a little bit more excited. I don't want to, even if I want way more. I know if I say, bro, smash it 10 times more exciting, that's going to put pressure on them. So I'm like, oh, if you think you can, could I get that again with more excitement, sort of thing. And I'll sometimes say, dude, if we have to, we'll do individual sentences. So I don't mind because I'll just chuck B-roll over the top anyway. But I'm like, just give me 1 or 2 sentences instead of the whole paragraph. And just make sure your tone doesn't go up at the end. Like you're telling me something, you're not asking me a question. So you go blah, 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 blah. Not blah, 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 sort of with ums and stuff. So I'll sort of small chunk it if I have to.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's worst case scenario, right? I'm just going to quickly.
Yeah.
I realize the monitor's gone. But I think, you know, it's like worst case scenario, you have to chunk it, which is never ideal. But I also feel as though, you know, I think another tip that's really helped me is potentially getting someone from the business to like talk to them. And I don't know if your testimonials directly to camera, like do people look directly into the camera or they look off camera?
So most of the time I do direct to camera, but my last couple, I always say to the client, we can do either way. And again, screenshot of both. I'm like, I don't care which one you want. I personally like you talking to me to the camera, but that's my personal preference, not my expert opinion. So here's what they both look like. You decide what you want. You can just tell me on the day. So think about it, watch a few others, decide what you want, and we'll do it on the day. Otherwise, I'll just do talking to camera. So that's how I do it.
Yeah, I think for me, like the really big things which have helped, someone from the organization, like talking to them. So like someone who already knows them and has that rapport. I know like you said you try to build rapport with them on the day, which is awesome. And I try to do the same thing. But at the same time, like knowing them for 5 minutes is probably not going to be as powerful as, you know, the other person who's worked with them for the last 5 years and they have a really good sort of banter with each other and everything else. And then also like looking off camera, I feel like puts them more at ease because they're looking directly into someone's eyes rather than the lens. Because I feel like looking at the lens is a really unnatural thing that I've had to like learn to do, obviously with YouTube and everything else. But it does feel a bit weird to like look down the barrel of this thing. And then also telling them, like you said, you had some good lines there about what you could say to try and get them to bring it up a little bit. I always like tell people that your excitement looks less on camera. So you do have to turn it up a little bit, because even if I'm talking like at my normal, like sort of, state, it's not going to look very excited. But then if I sort of put a bit of more of a smile on, you tend to find people like they don't go too far. They sort of land right at the point where it actually feels right. It feels like they are excited.
Yeah, so nobody's ever gone too far.
Yeah.
They feel like they're going too far and they've gone from a 3 to a 4.
Yeah, but it feels like too much, right? It always feels like they're going way over the top, and that's why they feel like self-conscious. But I think like, if you can kind of, if you can make them feel like, no, don't worry, you're fine. And then even if you like play it back for them as well, so they can kind of see, some people respond better to that than others. Some people don't want to see themselves. But sometimes you play it back and they're like, oh yeah, no, you're right. Like I do look like I'm disappointed, or I do look like I'm not happy on camera when I actually feel like I'm excited about this organization. So I'll try that again, kind of thing. And that could be another tip if you're struggling with it, to just sort of show them and go, look, here's what I'm finding. Like the excitement's maybe not as high as we need it to be. Like, I don't know what we could do to try and make it a little bit better, but like bring them in that process, right?
Yeah, and I also find because you've spent time setting up the A-roll shot, like I've got some lighting, I've chosen a nice background, I've got a flattering angle, a bit of lens compression or whatever, they look better than they think they do, sort of thing. So it's just like a boring looking person. And then I'm like, oh bro, check out this, like, does this shot look nice to you? And they're like, oh hell yeah. And they sort of get a little bit excited. Like usually they're not like, oh, I'm ugly or something. Like you don't get all their insecurities. They're just like, oh, I thought I was hideous and I'm just normal. You know what I mean? Just like they're like really excited when they see it with the lighting and how professional it looks. And then they get more excited, as well as also showing them, I know you thought you're an 8, but objectively you're a 3, like sort of thing. But yeah, like that, and they get to feel like they're more like, instead of I'm putting them on the spot, it's like we're working together. Do you like this frame? Like, do you want me to like go wider or tighter and stuff? And they obviously like it. They're not going to be like, oh well, actually maybe if you switch lenses or something. They wouldn't ever say that. But just that they feel like, oh, we're a team collaborating to make a sick video. Instead of somebody I've never met pointing a big ass camera at me. Yeah,
and it's like asking, not necessarily telling, or, just sort of bringing them into it rather than just sort of like keeping them out of it, I think always helps out. And as a side note, how many times do people say, that's a nice camera? They look at the frame, they go, that's an amazing camera. And I'm like, it's not just the camera.
Yeah, I'm like, dude, like it's the lighting, it's everything else sort of thing. And yeah, it's the same thing with photography, man. If you
Yeah.
do anything that looks nice, it's 100% the equipment sort of thing. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
you can't possibly how you're operating it. Yeah, but
Yeah.
I know what they mean sort of
Yeah.
thing, but yeah.
Yeah. I just find it funny
Yeah, so I
because
never
it's
take
like,
it personally.
yeah, it's not just the camera. It's everything that's going into this, and like, I think people just simplify it down. And that's why it's going back to the pre-production. It's really important to explain like why all this stuff is important. Why, you need to set up lights and why it takes time and why that costs money and everything else. It just sort of goes back around in a circle.
Yeah. Oh, I do, yeah, because like when I'm joking around with a client as well, I'll like explain my camera to them. Like, well, we're sort of like I'm setting up the camera, we're waiting for the first talent to come in, all this sort of stuff. I'm like, oh, I'm just going to put this matte box on the front just to impress you. And they're like, oh, what? I'm like, oh yeah, that really helps outdoors, but we're indoors, but you'll be impressed, right? And they just love joking along. And then you're just sort of building the vibe. And the other thing as well, when you're doing off camera, are they always looking at somebody, or are they sometimes just like looking at the wall sort of thing?
Generally looking at someone, because I would prefer like I be behind the camera looking at like the shot, and then someone who we generally get from the organization would be standing next to the camera talking to them, or sitting next to the camera talking to them. And I find it just like makes it so much easier for the talent to look at someone's eyes and be like, yeah, I feel this way. And it just like gives them much more emotion, like especially for people who aren't like experienced looking at the camera. I think it helps out sometimes. But again, it depends on the video. If it feels like you want to talk to the audience, then obviously like looking at the lens makes way more sense. And especially for like pieces to camera, obviously they're looking right at the lens. We put a teleprompter on, but like they're looking at the lens.
Yeah. Yeah, no, because I've only done a couple looking side on, and I've always had my client there, and then that's the person from the company that the client wanted interviewed or whatever. But I've never tried not having the person there. But I was just thinking, if it's somebody awkward on camera, are they sort of going to be more comfortable talking to the wall, or are they going to be more comfortable talking with the marketing manager or the CEO staring at them? So I'm just like, what in your opinion, you reckon having somebody there they're talking to feels nicer than them addressing the water cooler or whatever?
I guess in worst case, I've actually never tried that. I don't think I've ever had someone who was just so unable to communicate on camera that I felt like they needed to look just directly at a wall. But I guess that is a technique I could try in the future if we ever run into it.
Yeah. The way you said that, I'm like, maybe I shouldn't try it. Like, it sounds retarded now that you're saying it out loud.
It sounds really weird, but maybe like you're right. Maybe it could help quell like any sort of, if they've got some sort of anxiety around it. And it depends on if it's a CEO, like especially maybe with these smaller like companies, that could feel maybe jarring if they don't have a good relationship with each other. But I think a lot of the organizations I've shot have kind of been like multiple levels of organization management, and therefore the person they're talking to isn't their direct superior, isn't someone that like they have any sort of feelings around, like that the marketing person isn't going to be telling them how to do their job, or isn't going to be telling them like, or they don't have a bad relationship with each other. So I kind of feel like that helps too. So I think it's just been luck and circumstance that's got me through that, to be honest.
Yeah. I also feel like every time I've done a talking head, testimonial, piece of camera, whatever, my direct client is in the marketing person, whatever, has always been there while it's happened. I've never had the marketing manager like, oh, you go in, shoot it, I'm away that day or whatever sort of thing.
Yeah.
So whenever I've had a bad performance by the talent, they've always been impressed, because they're like, dude, on the day, that was so awkward, which we both tried everything we could to bring the most out of them. And they were just awkward or whatever. But I can't believe what you've done in the edit sort of thing. So like even a bad interview ends up impressing them because they know what I was working with, rather than them just seeing the end product and going, bro, this is an 11 out of 10. You know what I mean? So I feel like I almost never want to shoot a testimonial or interview or whatever without the client being there. Just because then they can see, I could be like, bro, you know what we work with? I've done magic here.
Totally. Yeah, I feel like the same thing. I think, as we've spoken about throughout the whole thing, bringing the client in on the journey just makes it like they are a part of it. They know what happened on the day. They know what you had to work with. And therefore, they're not surprised when they see an interview and go, wow, the person who did this interview, like the person who said the words wasn't good, and the person directing them wasn't good either. Because then they just, like, there's too many questions there for them. They have to be like, how was the interview? Maybe it wasn't conducted in the right way. But if they were there, then it makes it like, no, I was definitely there. I saw everything. I know what was good and what didn't work. And as you said, if you can do really well with the B-roll shots and cutting it together and it's seamless, then you've made magic happen and you've made them really happy. So that's a good opportunity to sort of delight them, right?
Yeah, hell yeah. Anything you want to add before we wrap this up?
No, I don't think so. I think we've covered a lot of ground, and hopefully, like in future, we can cover some more topics. I've really enjoyed the chat.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, this has been awesome. Thank you so much.
No worries, man.
Thanks so much for watching that, guys. I had so much fun talking to Matt and hoping we can make another episode in the future.
I'm going to cut that there because my
about the
camera's
video
literally back
podcast, or if you've got any suggestions on topics we could cover in future, definitely let me know down below. We're thinking some video reviews or maybe some FX3/FX6 content. Thanks again, guys. See you next time. Oh yeah, I'm going to take a photo of this setup. Give me a sec. All right, give us a smile. Yeah, perfect. Cool. Yeah, perfect. I'll show my wife that. Like, my first YouTube video, baby. I don't know where to look. I'm so confused because you're here, but then there's the little me beside that, picture in picture, and then there's my monitor above and the flip out screen. So I'm just like, I gotta be like cross-eyed for this whole shit, man.